Hey everyone, welcome to the live stream today. Merry Christmas to everyone out there. We have got loads of cool things to show you with MindManager today, so we're quite excited about that. And for those of you who are connected in, please, if you have any comments or questions, don't hesitate to put them down on the comment section, and we'd be happy to answer them as we're going through. We're currently streaming on multiple platforms: YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn. So whichever platform you're on, just sit back, relax, have a cocoa, and we'll get underway here. So let's pull in the team here. There we go, the three wise men. So, hey, Alex and Jared, how's it going, guys?
Good morning.
So this is this time of the year we kind of go all out. We don't put any stops in. We kind of just go for the gusto. So we're all wearing our Christmas hats, and we're ready to rock and roll. So this live stream is specifically for financial advisors. However, if you're not a financial advisor, no problem. Keep watching, because there's going to be some stuff with MindManager that you probably will want to pay attention to that would fit within your business. Now, we're focusing on financial advisors at this point because that's kind of the genre that we're going to use for the demo. However, pay attention, because there may be some cool things in there that you might like. And don't hesitate, again, to put some questions in there. We have a few people blasting in here. Hey, Darren, how's it going? Good to have you aboard. So let's get going. Alex, we're going to shoot it over to you, and you can start your presentation. How's that sound?
Sounds perfect. Thank you. So, like Gary said, this is going to be a useful experience for everyone, even if you are not a financial planner by day. Obviously, we all have things that we need to plan for financially, whether that be Christmas shopping, which I have an example for later on today, or if it's just something that you do at your organization. Maybe you just handle getting the coffee there on time for everybody, right? If you just want to have something that is a useful piece of software that can help you see the big picture, MindManager is going to really be that piece of the platform. Now, we're going to start with our agenda today. We're going to talk about resources for learning MindManager. Obviously, we don't expect you to be a pro. A lot of the functionality that I will walk through today is more or less on the advanced side. So that's why I'm going to start out with that learning environment, show you how to access the templates, and then we'll roll into what auto calculations are, how to leverage formulas, and what automation in the background using smart rules can do for the documents that you have. And then, as I said, we'll close out with some fun examples like Christmas lists, being able to see what it looks like to create a financial document kind of for tracking customer experience. And as well, we'll also talk about an example for identifying the entire process from a top-down perspective of the intake of a brand new customer and the steps that go along the way, and how MindManager can help to visualize that kind of document also. So we are jam-packed today. Let's go ahead and jump in. And of course, if you do have any questions, you don't have to save them until the end where we do the Q&A. You can certainly just post them in the chat, and the guys will feed those over to me one at a time. All right, so before we jump into any of our examples, let's just have a brief overview of what MindManager is and why it's a very powerful tool. It is a way to visualize things in a flexible manner. It allows you to do a lot of different kinds of project planning that can be task tracking, process diagramming, a lot of what I've talked to you about already. But also, it really does help to expose your creativity. When I'm talking about that, I mean the fact that the canvas is just literally wide open. You can plug in shapes, you can bring over text boxes, images, you can even hyperlink to other file types. That way, if you do need to reference maybe another kind of document, you can use it as a thumbnail. I have such a thumbnail right here on the screen. And obviously, it's just giving more information and more context to the kinds of things that MindManager is going to help you with. But you can see here on the actual screen, these 5 images represent the growth of MindManager from its inception. So originally, obviously, everybody did mind mapping kind of on paper with a pen. They would kind of jot things down and then draw visual connections to them using a marker of some kind. Well, ultimately, MindManager turned that into a digital canvas, but we started to realize over the years that organizations and users wanted things in a more specific capacity. They wanted timelines, they wanted process, and they wanted to leverage and manage their data in different ways. So things like start dates, due dates, tracking costs, identifying resources, all of that is possible within MindManager. So these 5 images really do represent the growth and trajectory of MindManager into the future. And then, of course, when we're talking about how to leverage MindManager, there are a variety of ways that you can put these kinds of files together. And that's why I say that the canvas is truly wide open. A quick example here shows that you can layer the shapes together with text boxes, and then you can create one-of-a-kind grid-like structures. Down here in the lower corner, you can see that you can identify the process of something, break it out step by step, and identify all the players along the way. Or if you look up above here, you can have a traditional kind of org chart that rolls figures from the top down or bottom up kind of experiences. So again, the canvas itself is really whatever you need it to be for that particular initiative. If you are someone that is looking to put together a presentation, you could do something along those lines as well by really leveraging images, having those hyperlinks to the appropriate locations, things along those lines. So a very, very flexible and powerful piece of software, and we're only scratching the surface. So let's talk a little bit more about what you can expect to see with the latest release of MindManager specific for 23.1. So in this release, we actually changed things a bit, and we have a brand new way of using the canvas, like I was just talking about, and that is the whiteboard mode. So let's go ahead and take a look at exactly what that means. So previously, anything that was before 23.1, you had a series of options that you could select from in your template selection area. But you can see that the subtopic layouts now do include whiteboard, and there's also a sticky note experience here as well. So that definitely changes the way that you can kind of get ideas out of your head. And of course, those collaborative experiences where you have the co-editing session active and you have multiple people jumping into this file. Everyone has their own sticky note. You can set the automations that we'll talk about in the next few slides so that your sticky notes or your topics can look a specific way, maybe have a specific font or a specific color. And then, of course, the rest of your team can have their own unique identifiers as well. That way, as ideas are getting jotted down and you're kind of gathering data on your clients, for example, you can have all of these notes and then, of course, copy and paste them into a more structured experience like an org chart, like a right map, or like a tree diagram. So you have a lot of flexibility there as well. So that's one big major release update for 23.1 that I wanted to call out early on, as some of the examples that we will walk through will leverage some of those functions. So a lot has changed in just one dot release of MindManager. The other thing to keep in mind is that we also have an updated suite of templates that you can start to leverage so that as you're getting familiar with using MindManager, you don't have to start from scratch. So as you can see, I've highlighted the whiteboard mode. That is the completely brand new version for 23.1. And then everything that you see on this top row is what we would call the hierarchy-based diagram. So these first 5 here, so radio map through timeline. Now, the reason that I point this out is that they function a bit differently than some of the other template environments. So these 5 are definitely going to be helpful for those that are using MindManager in a financial planning capacity, specifically because these 5 elements roll content together through their branches. Because they are, again, hierarchy based, if I include a cost of $1 here, $2 here at the parent level, I'm going to see that my overall cost is $3. So as we move through today's discussion, we will do a lot of mapping in the hierarchy-based examples, but I do want to point out that I have some versions for flowcharting and concept map as well. So I haven't left anyone out. If you are one of these types of users, we have some content for you. And then down below, we have completely revitalized our professional template environment. So all of these are brand new for 23.1 as well. And if you are a web user of our platform, you will recognize those. We've been promising for quite a while that we were going to port over all of the templates that we had on web, bring them over to the desktop. And obviously we have now made good on that promise. One of my favorite subfolders is also the legacy collection. So that's anything prior to version 22, and that has some of my favorite examples in it. And maybe if we have time at the end, I will dive through there and show some of those off as well. So it's a very, very well-rounded experience there in the templates, and all of those are going to be used in different ways in different capacities. Now, what I will say is to get familiar with what template to use in what scenario, there's a great piece of the platform that I always suggest. So going to the help menu here at the top of the screen, you will see that there is a tutorial space at the very top. So this is definitely one of the places to start on day number 1. This is a great way to get familiar with many of the different use cases that MindManager has to offer. And it's an awesome way to kind of springboard into building a little bit of muscle memory, because these are not videos that you watch. They are ultimately, I would say, they're gamified versions of learning the features. So if I wanted to polish up on my brainstorming skills, I could click this module and it would actually ask me to select things in the ribbon, use specific features, and if I miss something, it will kind of backtrack me and ask me to try it again. So it's a great way to get very, very familiar very quickly with some of the top functionality that MindManager has to offer, including that automation that I told you about before with the feature called Smart Rules. It's also excellent if you need to learn how to get the document out of MindManager, right? We don't expect that everyone that you meet will understand or have the ability to open a mind map. So we obviously have plugged in a way to share this content, publish the material, and as I mentioned earlier, even co-edit the documents with other licensed users. So it's a great way to get familiar with all of the options that you have to get that material into the hands of others. So for Gary and Jared, just in case, do we have any questions here early on that we need to address before we start talking about some of the live examples?
Jared's moderating, but Jared, you can answer that question. I'm just saying, I just wanted to say, Alex, that this is really great to actually show, where it started, how it became, and that this is really a really good start or foundation, I would say, to start mind mapping. Jared, any questions so far?
Yeah, no questions so far there, Gary or Alex. Yeah, no questions so far.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Gary. I appreciate the feedback there. I always find that it's useful to understand, the foundation of mind mapping, because there are great books out there that talk about it as a concept even before, there was a software that exists. And I believe you've read a few of those books, right, Gary?
Yes, yeah, I have. I've got a couple of them. Tony, I can't remember his last name, but was one of the ones from the UK
Buzan,
that
yeah. Tony
Bazan. Yeah,
Buzan.
yeah, exactly.
Well, awesome. So let's go ahead and continue on. We'll talk a little bit more about templates as we use some of these examples. But now we're going to start diving into a little bit of the actual content now. We're going to start looking at some of the key functions and features that I think are very beneficial for the average financial planner. So as you can see, I have an image here on the screen that is doing a lot of budget calculation. And off to the right, we've got a couple of different people. We even have a team mapping experience. We also have at the very top of the screen have a formula that is literally a true formula that you could plug into MindManager and you could make it work. So this is a representation of what the power of AutoCalc can do for your diagram. So if you are someone that is going to be using MindManager in a financial capacity, this example is geared up specifically for you. This allows you to essentially take any topic structure that you have and automatically add elements that will then render a summary of financial capacity. So let's say you're adding things together, rolling a cost. In this example, we are looking at a team cost and then breaking that down by the two different representatives of the team. So let's go ahead and jump into a brand new document and we'll talk about how to build something like that. So let's say that this is our team map. We're going to plug that in right here. And we're going to give it a couple of different subsets. So let's say that we have person A, and person B over here. There we are. And we can even change the formatting of this. So I'll go to format at the very top, update our layout, and position that into org chart. That way everybody is side by side down at the bottom. So again, we've got person A and person B. So from here, we could say that we now want to have a overall cost for the two items that are coming from the lower level. So these are what we would call child or children topics. So this would be, again, considered the parent. So on the advanced ribbon, that's where we're going to find that function for auto calc. So I'm going to select that option, and it's then going to ask me for a few pieces of information. So it's asking me what we want to set this first property to as far as the name. So I will say this is going to be the total team cost. So that's going to be the item that shows up here on the team map. And then it's going to be the sum, but I could use the drop down and make it an average, a minimum, maximum, or just a simple count. But I do want the sum because I want to be able to add these together. And now it's going to be for the first blank property. Well, I'm going to call this just individual cost, right? And it's going to be in the range of the descendants. I could also have it look at itself. Now, this will be really helpful when we start talking about adding formulas to your diagrams and kind of doing a little bit more of an advanced approach to these kinds of breakouts. But I could also look at parent topics. I could look at the entire branch. So there are several different options that you can kind of play around with as you start to get more familiar with this particular example. For now, I'm going to leave it at the default of descendants. I do want it to populate the topic range, so I'm going to leave that item checked, but I don't want a number. I rather am looking for a currency. But as you can see, I could choose percentage or integer as well. But I do want a currency because I'm talking about dollars and cents here. So I'm going to go ahead and press OK, and you'll see that the AutoCalc has now added two different layers to this diagram. So I can plug in $12 here, and let's say I plug in $16 here. And that second level is also the summary level as well. So you can see that $28 overall is what our team is going to cost for person A and person B for whatever their initiatives are, whatever they're applying to your project. Maybe they're consultants, maybe they are people that are bringing equipment, you name it. You can start to, at a very high level, track cost using AutoCalc in such a way. Now, going back to that template environment, let's go ahead and jump back in. File, and again, new is how you access your templates here. If you go a little bit down into that strategy and analysis area, that's where you're going to have a couple of those kinds of examples. Now, again, I would definitely suggest using the legacy collection because it has even more bells and whistles. So I'm going to open the legacy folder here, and this time I'm going to open strategic planning. And you can see I have a cost benefit analysis detailed, and I also have a simple version here on the right. So I'm going to go ahead and select this template, and keep in mind, this is shipped with MindManager, so you can literally do this on day one, whether or not you know how to use AutoCalc at all. And you can see that my cost items are already applied within the template. And so I can start to run those numbers together. And you can see that I can now do a bit of scenario review, right? I can see alternative number 1, 2, all the way through 5. I can input all of the costs. Maybe these are different vendors, maybe they are different pieces of equipment, whatever the case may be, but I've got 5 different ways to kind of break out the expenses around that particular item. And then of course I can go with the most cost effective measure. But again, this is a template that you will find in the legacy collection. So we'll walk through that one more time. So that's file and new, and then using the legacy collection to open strategic planning. And this is something that is, again, shipped with MindManager, but it has elements of the AutoCalc functions already embedded. So I'll go ahead and open up the floor for any questions if that has spurred any interest.
Yeah, there's a specific question, an act-specific question.
Okay.
And the question is MindManager built right in Act? And if so, is this an add-on? Asks Tammy.
Yeah, this is something that's on the roadmap to create integration with MindManager and Act. And so part of some of the things that we'll be doing is reaching out for looking for specific use cases of that integration. So Tammy, because you're a financial advisor, you'll have stuff that maybe you're pulling from the product tables inside of ACT that you want to be able to run numbers from. For example, how many people have long-term care or critical illness, and I want to be able to see those numbers inside of MindManager. So this is something that we're looking at, not just for financial advisors, but for anybody using ACT. That there will be some sort of integration, and that is on our software development roadmap.
I love that response there, Gary, and it's absolutely true. MindManager is always looking to advance the different ways that we can be plugged in and kind of incorporate other tools and other systems. And Tammy, also directly to your question, as far as a bit of a workaround in the time that we are working to develop that true add-in, there is the option of using Excel data mapper to bring content over and make the most of it within a mind map. So I've created alternative number 6 here at the bottom of the screen, and I'm going to talk through a little bit about how that function works. So we are still here on the advanced tab. We have the Excel data mapper up above. So I'm going to trigger that option. And now it's going to ask me where I want to bring the material to. I'm going to go with my selected topic here. And now it's going to ask me to locate the Excel file that I want to use. So I'm going to bring over a local copy, and I believe it's going to be in my examples folder. So let me go into that. There we go.
And
Advanced.
Alex, the nice thing too is Tammy has the ability, or anybody that's using the advisor add-on for financial advisors, to be able to take that information and dump it into an Excel file so that they can import it in just as you're showing.
There we go. That's what I'm talking about. And so here we are. We've got the document loaded up. Now it's asking me how I want to structure the information once it becomes a part of the map. Well, luckily I have a preset, and that just essentially means that I've done this once before, so I don't have to manually include all of my settings. So I'm going through that same process to open my event planning folder, and I'm going to select the preset from here. Now, keep in mind, I am going to bring all of this over into a mind map, but before I do that, I'm also going to attach it. So the first 2 steps that I just did are necessary. This third step that I'm about to do is actually not necessary. It's only being done so I can show you a side-by-side comparison of the actual Excel document alongside the map. So this, again, this third step is not necessary for the process, but it is necessary for me to demonstrate what you will have as a finished product. So I'm now attaching the document as well as importing it. So 2 different steps here. Now I'm attaching it. So I'm going back to that examples folder, advanced for our integrations with Excel Data Mapper. And here we are. I'm going to go ahead and press OK, and you can see it gave us a paperclip icon here, and it now exposes the name and location of the file. And if I double click on this, it will open in our built-in browser. So I'll go ahead and run that now, and as soon as it loads up, you'll be able to see the true structure of the file, so very standard. And here we go. So you can see we have a status, a campaign ID, the name of the event, the location is blank. We do have a rating, and we are tracking things like which region it takes place in, what kind of event, participants, cost, and date. So a very standard, very straightforward Excel document, nothing fancy, and it didn't require any heavy lifting to bring this material over. So I'll go ahead and minimize that for now and go back into our Excel data mapper formatting. And so now let's say that I want to look at this through 2 different perspectives. Maybe I want a regional perspective, and maybe I also want a status perspective. Well, that's the great thing about the Excel data mapper. I can bring that content over twice using the same set of source material. Now, you may be wondering, how did this screen come to be, this particular level 1, level 2 breakout? Well, this is the preset that I loaded just a moment ago. You can see that my preset is set to have the region as the first level, and then the next level will break each of those events out by name. And within the property, we will have the cost element, just like we did with AutoCalc, but we're also going to account for the rating, which was available in that Excel document. We'll account for the participants, and then in the notes, we will also include the status and the campaign ID and we will reiterate the region as well. So I'll go ahead and press apply, and all of those changes will come over and become a part of the map. There we go. Now it may look a little jumbled because we haven't formatted our document in the most helpful way. So I have regional selected here since it is the parent topic. I can go back up to the top of the screen, select format, and that will allow me to change the layout into something a little bit easier to digest, like an org chart. So now we have a true side-by-side comparison of the Excel document along with what it generated as a mind map. So even on day number one, if you don't know how to truly use MindManager, knowing how to bring a document over from Excel and maybe plug it into a template will already make you a lot more efficient, because from this perspective, I can now see, well, obviously our North region is going to be the most expensive. We've got the mid, the Southern, and those that are not set. Now, of course, as I promised, you can also do a bit of a pivot table, if you will, in this experience, because we can also set this to org chart, go back over to Excel data mapper, and change the first level. So rather than it being a regional breakdown, we can have it become a status breakdown. And now we can apply that material here. And that way we can see what has actually been approved, what's still in planning, what is open to kind of open as far as budget, and what we have canceled or what events will not be taking place. So this again doesn't have anything to do with a regional component, but obviously we have that just up above. And if we don't need it, we can simply hit the minus sign, collapse, and expand the branches when necessary. So hopefully, Tammy, that speaks to your goal of bringing content over, making sure that the information you have stored in ACT is going to be as useful as possible in MindManager. And I think that's definitely going to be a great segue up until the point we have that true one-to-one integration. So great question, and thank you for that. Any other questions before we jump back into our slides?
No more questions right now, Alex. So thank you.
All right. Thank you, Jared. All right, so let's go ahead and jump back into our financial planning. I'll go ahead and close the Excel data mapper portion. So that's a quick way to look at two different pieces of content coming from two of your colleagues. And maybe you are all managing a very large client and they have different components, and you're actually pulling data together as it relates to maybe somebody's handling insurance, another one is handling their financial as far as it goes with banking, right? So you have two different ways to kind of bring that content together, roll all of that material up to see the big picture. So now let's talk a bit about how those formulas are structured, what a property is, and ways to kind of create these custom one-on-one experiences. So the property overview, I'm going to start here on the right, has things like numbers, currency, percentages, integers. You can also use just general text. You can have multi-line. You can also have a list. You can have start dates, times. You can even have a selector. So that way, if you need to trigger something as true, false, yes, no, whatever the case may be, you have that option, as well as a folder and file link as well. That way, if you want to represent the location of a document or something along those lines, you have that at your disposal. Now, while writing formulas, there are a couple of things to keep in mind. The property is going to be that first value that we created. So let's go back to our team map. You can see that on the team map level, which is again the parent topic, we wanted to give this first property a very high level overview of terminology that would tell us what we're calculating here at this point. So that's where the first property comes into mind. You'll then use an equal sign and then follow that with a function. So the function is going to be shown here. And you have, as we showed you before, summarization. You can do a count, you can do a minimum, a maximum. All of these are possible. And then, of course, you want to include a topic range. That's when we selected descendants. Maybe at that point, you only wanted the child level, so one level deep. But if you say descendants, it will go all the way down the tree as far as it can go. So you have to be very careful with how you name the elements that you use while writing the formulas, and B, you have to determine where you want to pull the values from. So again, if it's going to be all of the descendants in a tree, that's very useful. Just make sure you don't write the word children, because it will only go one level deep. And then lastly, you have to determine what the operation is going to be in your formula. Are you going to be adding things, subtracting things, multiplying, dividing, using exponents, or forming some kind of a bracket? So again, a very, very high level overview of that formula experience. Now let's talk about how those actually work in concert. So here is the formulas function. So you can see here at the top of the screen, I'm using the add option, and that's where I could then plug in a property, which is again just a key term, some kind of a naming convention. Using that equal sign, I would then include some kind of a function, so summarization like we did in our last example. And then of course, filling in the topic range. That's when you would look at, I just want to look at the self topic that I'm currently highlighted on. I want to look at the parent of the topic I have highlighted, or I want the entire branch structure. Now, of course, this is not a full demo on using formulas, but I did want you to know how these functions are working in the background on the examples that we have already built. And of course, if Gary wants to, we can certainly make this available to everyone so that you have a functional guide. You actually have a copy of today's map. And so that way you have all of this in writing, and that way you have a great way to kind of play around with things as we move through the rest of the discussion. So now that we've had a overview of what formulas have to offer, let's talk a little bit about automation and how that's going to then enhance the documents that you're working on with your clients. On the screen right now, you're looking at the Smart Rules experience. So this is a way to truly automate a document based on the material within it. So in the example here, you can see that I have a section that is assigned to myself, Alex Smith. I also have items that are going to take place based on the marketing team, and it's going to happen in Q2. I also have an element that is past due. Well, as you can see, a smart rule is already taking effect. It has changed the fill color of the topic, and it's added an icon. So that's our first segue into how automation is going to change the look and feel of the files that you work on. And this actually goes hand in hand with the example that I just gave to Tammy, because if she was working in that map and she had a certain number of elements that were over budget or were past due, she could have a series of rules that could automatically update her on the status. Now, here are all of the things that the Smart Rule experience can auto format for you. So it can include things like icons. It can add a tag to a topic, so something like marketing or Q2. It can add a resource, so assign something to someone. It can identify a level of priority. It can add a property, so those fields that we were adding our cost into. And it can also update the level of progress of the items that you're working on. So these automations are truly a very, very big game changer when it comes to getting things done in an efficient way, especially when you're bringing over documents from another system, because you can write a series of rules that will look at that data and then visually alert you to what it has found. You will find things a lot faster when it comes to start dates, due dates, budget relative items, and of course, resource management as well. So if you have an entire team dedicated to one of your customers and somebody's going on vacation for the holiday, you can have one of those structures inside of a mind map, and it can identify, hey, we don't have enough resources to essentially assist this project or this client, and we need to maybe make some adjustments. So it's a great way to kind of get everything in front of you and make sure that you are on top of everything. So let's talk a little bit about how those examples will work. So I'll go ahead and highlight this topic here, and I'm going to go up to the advanced ribbon at the top of the screen, open our Smart Rules experience, and first I'm going to edit the rules so you can see that the highlight past due item is already active. These three are actually shipped with the software. So you don't have to worry about whether or not you can manage projects in our software. That's a no-brainer. So keep in mind that we also have this green item that will turn on if you highlight a completed task. So let's go ahead and cancel this out. And you can see this is a past due task based on the title, but I'm going to go ahead and mark it as done with a quick right click on the icon, trigger it as completed, and of course I can then update the wording to done or complete, something like that. But you'll also see that the fill color has again changed, and we have a brand new icon on the topic as well. So those are direct results of the rules that MindManager ships with. Let's say that we wanted to now add a new rule, And let's say that the trigger will be the resource. And if it contains Alex, and I'll go ahead and put my name in there, then we want to identify an effect. And I'm going to go ahead and choose an icon. And let's say that the effect is going to be, oh, you know what? Let's go for a smiley face. That's perfect. I'm very happy. So we've got a new rule. Obviously, I didn't give it a title, so we can go back in by clicking Edit, and I'll call this the Alex rule. So again, the trigger is going to be that it's looking for the resource to contain Alex. And of course, the icon is going to be a happy face. But of course, going to the drop down again, it could be the properties that are on the topic. It could be that I'm looking for an icon on the topic to trigger something. It could be a tag. It could be the total cost of a task. It could be the due date. It could be the level of priority or the overall amount of progress. So many different items to choose from, even all the way down to just the topic text itself. So, I mean, there are a number of ways, an infinite number of ways to kind of mix and match these options to make one-of-a-kind experiences. So I'll go ahead and press OK here and add that rule, and you can see that automatically the happy face has been applied to the topic where Alex is listed as a resource. And that's awesome because I can now drag and drop Alex anywhere throughout this document, and that smiley face is going to travel along with it. Now, the other awesome thing here is that these are all filterable pieces of content. So if I wanted to see everything that had a happy face on it or everything that was assigned to Alex, I could simply right-click on the name Alex or the icon, quick filter, and I could choose to show topics with that marker. I could also hide things with specific markers or just fade them out into the background. So many different ways to go about it. But again, the idea here is that you're bringing data over from one system, having a series of rules that will then look at that information and then mark it up with icons, change the color, you name it. Really just kind of drive home the point there that the automation in the background is going to make you more efficient in the long run. And so I set all of that up to kind of work as a segue into the final set of examples that we have, where we are going to be looking at a true customer-like experience where they are managing their 401k, identifying their liabilities such as vehicle loans, education, student loans, and having a top-down perspective of that. So before we jump in, I just want to double check with Jared to see if we have any questions on the automation or smart rules.
Yeah, we don't have any questions so far. I had just one question with like the smart rules and stuff like that. When you're importing like data, like from Excel, if you change like the original document, like add something to it, does it sync with MindManager, or do you have to sort of input it in? That was just a question I had. I was curious about.
Absolutely, and obviously I'm excited to be working with you as well. So if you have questions, keep them coming. So
Awesome.
you're definitely right about some of the functionality there. You will have to re-import the document, and so I want to make that part very clear. I am saying the word import specifically rather than syncing. And I'll point that out exactly why. So at the top of the screen here, SharePoint is another one of the ways that we plug in with the Microsoft world. Now in SharePoint, we do have a syncing ability. So if you were to pull data in from a SharePoint list, maybe you have a breakout of tasks that are going to happen, you could pull that into a mind map and sync the data between the two systems so that if I'm managing the file as a mind map and I'm updating progress, changing resources, pushing out start dates or due dates, all of that will be directly synced with the list in SharePoint. That is not the case for the Excel data mapper, so I do want to make that part very clear, and thank you for that question. It would require a separate re-import, if you will.
Alex, just a quick question for me. So with that SharePoint, because we're not importing it in, and we can synchronize, and we do recommend that people use OneDrive and SharePoint so that they can actually have access to the documents on a larger scale. And so if a person does have an Excel spreadsheet that they're constantly working on making adjustments, does it work? So because it has the ability to sync, does it still pull in and have the data mapper functionality where it can do all the cool things that you had shown us?
Yes, absolutely. So even though The file changes, right, on the back end as far as what's being imported, the rules are embedded directly into the mind map that you're using. So I would definitely say this: if you're going to build something like this for a team, it's best to create all of those rules, save the map as a template, and then email that to all of your colleagues. That way, let's say you're brand new to MindManager and you're going to spend the first month detailing how you want all of your financial advisors to use the system, right? You don't want them to come in and be confused or to be even rubbed the wrong way, right? You want to make this as easy and onboarding for them, and you really want to make their lives more efficient. I always suggest that the director of that team spend the first, couple of weeks using the product, understanding how to create these rules, and then all you have to do is show your financial planners how to do a successful import. So obviously, again, it will not sync with the data that they have, so they will be doing imports a lot. But if that's the only thing that they have to learn is how to construct the import, and all of the rules are already in the background based on the template that you've created over the first few weeks, I think you're going to get a lot more buy-in from your financial planners at the end of the day, because it was not a heavy lift. It didn't require them to do a lot of research, and ultimately they got something that gave them benefit and value on the very first day, because all they had to learn was the simple steps of doing the Excel data mapper import. So it's definitely a little bit of a game changer from that perspective.
We have one more question here. Jared, do you want to read that out, and then I'll comment on that.
Yeah, we got a question from Darren. He's wondering, will mind map information sync with ACT?
So let me answer that. So it's on the roadmap to have this integration directly with ACT. However, right now, if, for an example, you pulled up a list of policies using, say you're using, I'm not sure, Darren, if you're using the advisor add-on for ACT for financial advisors. If you are, you would be able to say, for an example, if you wanted to take your living benefits and you dump that into an Excel file and you have it set up a certain way, you can save that into SharePoint. And what you could do is anytime you wanted to update that map, you could overwrite when you save that, dump it into the Excel file, save it, overwrite the one on SharePoint, and then that would give the updates back into MindManager. So that would be what you could do today while you're waiting for the integration that we're going to develop in the future.
Spot on, absolutely. And that was my main goal there, Darren, for taking the time to do that separate example when Tammy asked the question, is I wanted you to have something that you could take with you today, regardless of the time frame for us to put the research and development behind that integration, to know that the information you have today is still very valuable and very useful, even in a MindManager capacity. So great set of questions that we've had, some awesome interaction. So next we have an actual customer example. So bringing everything that we've discussed, all of the things that we've learned, and we're turning it into something that is customer facing and hopefully extremely beneficial in the long run for a financial advisor of sorts. So again, we are using that structure of the format of an org chart. Again, obviously this is not a true org chart, right? We're not identifying the different roles and responsibilities per department or something like that, but I think that it's always the best format for me as a presenter, because it kind of creates a horizontal and exposes all of the content on the screen. So that's the only reason I continually use these org charts. Now, of course, you as an actual mapper, you may prefer right map, you may prefer any kind of specific feature set that you build. So again, don't think that everything I'm doing in org chart is the only way it's possible. All of these can be updated, augmented many different ways. But you can see here on the side of the screen, we are identifying things with resources. We've got different levels of priority. We are tracking the progress of these items. So again, that brings us back to that automation side. Here in the center, we are then gathering those formulas, pushing all of that content together, giving us a total top line value in which we are taking the customer's assets, subtracting their liabilities, and telling them their net worth right here at the total top line kind of experience. And all of this is developed with the same set of, the ABCs that we walked through in our previous slides, right? Using AutoCalc to add 401k to the appropriate topics, having those figures roll up to the total investments section, having the total investments be added to the property, the equity of the properties here on the left, to get a total value kind of statement here at the top of the screen. So all of that is taking place, and it's all being rendered in one way or another. Now, there are things to keep in mind here, however. If you have the system looking only for a specific set of topics, then you will miss things. So you can see that I have $6 here as well as $6 here, but I'm only seeing a total of $6. So that's a little bit of not an Easter egg, but something that I hid in there to see if anyone would catch. And it's generally something that people overlook. You have to determine what kinds of properties you want it to look for. So that's one thing that I would always recommend that you keep in mind. Tell the system specifically if you're looking for 401k, IRA, or you could have it look for a generic item like the word total. So if we go ahead and update this, for example, it should still account for it, because the way that I wrote the rule was to account for the value here at the bottom, total. So rather than telling it to look for each and every individual item, it's probably best to create one topic, put all of your properties in it, total that up, and then the rule that you write will only have to look for the word total once. So no matter how many of these subtopics I have, even if I copy this one, apply it here, copy this one, and apply it here again, every time I don't have to rewrite my rule, because it's still looking for this one word as far as the overall parent experience will go. So any questions on this example? Is this useful? Does this speak to your world? I'm obviously not a financial planner, so this is my best stab at what you may be looking to leverage.
Yeah, we don't have any questions right now, Alex. But yeah, I think that's pretty powerful. Just cool that you can total up every different specific thing and just have a bunch of information seen visually rather than, just scrolling through different spreadsheets and stuff like that. I think it could be a powerful tool to looking at your customers, in my opinion. I'm not a financial advisor either, but I think that's pretty cool.
It's one of those things. It definitely feels like a world that I should know more about, right? And we all have properties, and we all pay bills, and we
Yeah.
all think we understand what a 401k is, and so I definitely want to know more. So I'm hoping that this is extremely beneficial in the long run. So you can see that the values that are negative are going to be in those parentheses, and once you again run your final equation at the very top level, your parent here, it can account for subtractions between the negative values and the positive. It also gives you the ability to have a storage environment for things that are not necessarily value related, right? So if this is just me having all of my document gathering done under one kind of parent topic, I can have my CFP, CPA, attorney, and my insurance details over here. I can identify which member of my team is going to be in charge of those relationships. So in this example, it's Judd who's going to be reaching out to these 4 external components for this particular customer and client. And then, of course, we have the ability to track this all as a project so that we could get an overall picture of health here at the top of the screen. So let's go over to our task info environment, and we will trigger this first topic here at the top as a roll-up task. That way, it's now summarizing everything that's happening down below it, and it's letting us know that we are 69% done with this particular client. And then, of course, keep in mind from the perspective of a financial planner, you could literally have this document become a part of a master file that would allow you to filter through all of your clients in one place, one location, and make your life a lot easier, because that way you could have a series of these icons that could become a part of your meetings, for example. So if I use this number 1 icon and I drag and drop it across the diagram, when I actually have to meet with that customer, I can quickly hover over that number 1, quick filter and show topics with that marker. That way I know during that meeting, we're going to talk about this property, we're going to talk about this retirement, and we need to discuss this vehicle, for example. Even though I've got a number of subtopics at my disposal, I'm able to then refocus the discussion to the elements or create an ad hoc agenda for that day. And then, of course, if they need to see the big picture, I can simply remove the filter and everything is back to normal. So it's a great way to keep everybody on the same page and make sure that you have every bit of detail in front of you. And for our last example, this is a simple expression of the customer life cycle over a 3-day process. Now, this may be something that is only done internally, but it's a great representation of how a financial planner could ultimately outline their needs, right? They could identify the systems that they're going to touch. So here's what happens on the website. Where does the data go? It gets ported over to a CRM. The CRM then sends a welcome email. They then try to reach out on the second day personally with a phone call. If they do connect, here is a series of questions that they should break out and get answers for. They could even fill them out here and add more info directly in the map. Or they may be directed to leave a voicemail and need a script of things to say. There you have it. And then, of course, they could then follow up on day 3 with an email. And that would be a step-by-step experience to kind of break out, hey, here's how you handle a new customer on the first day and somebody that may have just been hired. This will definitely speak volumes and help them feel a little bit more empowered as they move through that first week of becoming a new financial planner. So again, another set of examples, but totally different from our previous. The thing to keep in mind here is these are relation-based diagrams. So the roll-ups and the things that I showed you before are not capable of being applied. So you would not have different figures being rolled up together because again, these are collapsible components that are again considered a hierarchy diagram, whereas these are relation-based diagrams that are drawn and connected together manually with these arrows. So you can see I can't click anything to collapse any of these components. So that's just something to keep in mind about the different ways that MindManager can be leveraged. Again, relation-based diagrams versus hierarchy-based diagrams. So I know we're coming up to the end of our call. I do have the other example that I did want to show about Christmas shopping, but want to see if there are any other questions on the chat there, Jared.
No additional questions right now there, Alex.
Okay, perfect. Well, that leaves me just enough time to show you my last example, and it's a very timely experience. So here is Merry Christmas and a Mappy New Year and best wishes from MindManager. So this is an example that takes everything that we've talked about to the max. We're talking about leveraging beautiful backgrounds, making the canvas look much, much more like a piece of art than an actual mind map, but we do have the ability to still break out all of our content here. We're identifying things in euros, things in dollars. We've broken out all of the recipients that we're going to be working with. We even have hyperlinks to the Amazon location for the items that we are tracking. But there's also a little Easter egg in here that's identifying total price. And it's looking at the average cost per person and helping us to identify, are we still on budget with our Christmas shopping? Well, there's something going on here that is definitely going to draw attention, and it is mommy. She has diamonds. So you can see that there is a yellow color that's associated with this line. Let's go ahead and update this. Let's say that the diamonds only cost $111. And now it goes back to normal. So that is a direct example of how the automation is taking effect. So let's go back to that advanced tab and take a look at that. So let's go back into smart rules and we will edit our rules here in this particular example. That rule is called the budget rule. And so it's looking at the property that we talked about just a moment ago, and it's looking for the currency, but if it is greater than $500, we have an effect that will ultimately change the look and feel of the topic, obviously with the yellow fill color and the yellow line. And so that's one way that MindManager is going to then help you be more cost effective around the holiday, because as soon as this goes back up to 811, we can see that we have definitely gone over budget on something or someone in that case. So a great example that is just kind of all encompassing, right? It has the smart rules, it's got the formulas, and it's gorgeous. So it's definitely one that I love to share this time of year. So MindManager is truly a one-of-a-kind platform that has no boundaries. And I hope this has been a very beneficial experience for all of our attendees today. Thank you for your time. And Gary, Jared, I will turn the call back over to you.
All right. So that was really, really informative, and it's amazing to me the things that you can do with MindManager. And for those financial advisors on, I just want to reiterate that the data that you have, a CRM system like ACT, where you have different tables of information, and specifically for those who have tables of product tables like life insurance, living benefits, critical illness, and you want to be able to pull that data out either for one individual, or maybe you want to pull off for all of your clients and get a synopsis. Even though we don't have the integration yet, it is on our roadmap, and even though it's not in there directly yet, you can, like Alex said, dump it into an Excel file in any format that you want, and then start taking that information and presenting it in a way that makes sense to you, whether you're showing costs or status or whatever it is that you want to look at. You'd be able to pull that information and present it in different ways. And then if you're using something like SharePoint, like Alex mentioned, then you can overwrite that file each time that you want to see an update, because it's not live syncing. You'll be able to just export, save it, overwrite it, and then that information will update that mind map and show whatever it is that you're trying to present. So I think we scratched the surface. I know with working with Alex, and we've done a few things where it's like, wow, you can do that? I had no idea. Like the smart rules. That smart rules is just brilliant. And then to be able to add formulas is just amazing. Any other questions? Jared, do you have any comments? Anything that stands out for you?
Yeah, no, I think it's an extremely powerful tool. There's a lot of things that you can see a project and a design, kind of like a mind manager of it, but it won't have to store the documents. It won't update on the fly. You can't store everything all in one place. You can't sync it to other things when it changes. You can't have it have smart rules to then highlight when something's overdue or when something's coming up due. So that way things don't get missed and everything gets taken care of, and it's all organized and in one place where you can see the big picture. I think it's really amazing, to be honest.
Yeah. So Alex, any other words before we wrap up here?
No, just thank you. Happy holidays. And as always, it's a pleasure working with both of you, and I'm excited for 2024.
Yep. Awesome. Well, thanks, Alex, Jared.
Thank you.
Thank you, all of you who have shown up today. Hopefully this has been beneficial to you. If you have any questions, don't forget, throw them in the comments, or you can actually direct message me. Most of you have my information, and we'd be happy to answer any questions we can. Merry Christmas. We'll talk to you on the next video. We have one coming up this Friday, and look forward to those who can attend. This should be kind of an interesting one. It's on ACT version 25.2 and what the new feature is in there. And then we've got something, we got a little Christmas present for you as well that we'll show you on that live stream. Anyways, Merry Christmas, everyone. We'll talk to you in the next video. Bye for now.
Take care.